In this episode of Expat Podcast the Netherlands, I talk with Gary Sullivan, an American executive in the pharmaceutical industry, who has lived and worked with his family across Austria, Switzerland, and now the Netherlands. From that international journey, he shares thoughtful insights on Dutch work culture, leadership, and family life abroad. We talk about the nuances of leading a Dutch team, the importance of being heard in the workplace, and why true integration goes deeper than simply feeling comfortable. Gary also reflects on the raising children internationally and what helps expats build a real sense of connection in a new country. If you're interested in leadership, cultural differences, and settling into life in the Netherlands, this conversation is for you. Welcome to this podcast, Your Move to the Netherlands. I'm here with Gary Sullivan, and we are in beautiful Haarlem, very close to Amsterdam. Very nice that I'm going to be talking to you because you have a lot to share with us. And maybe as a first introduction, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure, absolutely. It's great to be here. I'm Gary Sullivan. So I was born and raised in the U.S. I was there and started my career there. I left the U.S. in 2019. With my family. First move outside of the U.S.
That was just before COVID then?
Just before COVID. So we actually landed in Vienna, Austria. My first role outside of the U.S. was in Vienna.
Right.
We landed in Vienna 2 weeks before the first lockdown. So
boy, what a luck. I guess it was luck.
It was. We had 2 weeks to explore the city. We felt like tourists, and then we felt a little bit more like locals because everyone was locked in the same place.
You're all the same.
Yes, exactly. It really, the day before the lockdown, I had a new boss because I had just changed roles. And so we didn't know each other that well. And I was just kind of getting used to things. And she came in and she said, how much food do you have in the house?
Oh, really?
And I said, none. We just have moved in yesterday. And that was a bit of a shocking moment, being in a new country with no... just trying to get our feet on the ground. And then
no
get the question, how much food do you have? Because, early in COVID, we didn't know would grocery stores be open and things like that. So I went to several different places, got as much food as I could. And then
you started really gathering everything.
But anyway, so I've been, like I said, I left the US in 2019. So I've been a few years in Europe now.
Yeah.
Spent some time in Austria.
Because you've been to Europe ever since.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
You haven't turned back to the US.
No, only for holiday and to see family. But other than that, been living in Europe.
Wow. So that's 6 years then? Seven months? Yeah. So quite an experience, I guess, after not having left your own country for a long time.
Exactly.
And then with your whole family. So what does the family look like?
So my wife actually works for the same company, which makes things... sometimes easier, sometimes more tricky.
Right.
Like anything else.
Did you meet in the company?
We did. Actually, both of our first roles outside of university, we met there, worked closely together. And then once we separated from a work perspective, then we got together from a romantic perspective.
Oh, very nice.
And have been together ever since. We have two girls. They were 6 and 8 when we first moved. Now 14 and 12.
So they're teenagers.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they... It's amazing how they've become international kids, more or less.
What did they think about it, the move? Did they realize what was happening?
When we first moved, they were still quite young. So it for them felt like a little bit of an adventure. I think similarly, the first few weeks felt like just a longer holiday and this is just a trip. And then we didn't go back. And so then, they were okay with that. COVID was a little bit of a bridge, honestly. At the time, of course, it felt very strange. But living in a new place, but then having homeschool and having restrictions on where you could go.
Very strange.
Very strange. Looking back, it was probably I don't know if the easiest is the right way to say it, but it made it smoother. Oh. Because they were, instead of, they were in their new school for a few days before they were homeschooled. And so then it was just us trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So then, since then, quite frankly, they've been the most adaptable I think as parents, we worry more about the things that we think they'll worry about than
it
they
just
actually
happens
do.
to them, right?
Yeah.
So a couple of years in Austria, and then you came to the Netherlands.
Actually, so a few years in Austria, about 2 years, and then 2 years in Switzerland.
Oh, Switzerland as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that always for the same company?
Correct. Yes.
Right. Can you tell us a little bit about the company?
Yeah, so it's a large U.S. pharmaceutical company, and we have a presence in 130 different countries. And the way that it works is headquarters is in the U.S., but then in each country we have a smaller subsidiary, and so we have a group of anywhere from 100 in a country like the Netherlands, or 1,000 in a bigger country like Germany. But then in each country we operate as our own company with just a relation to the bigger company in the U.S.
Is that also what you experienced from US going to Austria, going to Switzerland, now Netherlands? Is it always a different place?
It is.
In terms of company-wise?
It is. It's a great question. It's there are some things that are the same, and then there are kind of variations in each area. The Swiss is more of a European hub for the company, so you have a lot more people there from the company. So it has a more international feel. There's people there that have come from all over the world, and so that has kind of a hub feel to it. On the contrary, a country like Austria is, I would say, 99% Austrians that work in the company. So it's quite interesting that I've worked actually for the same company my entire career. So I've kind of grown up in this environment, and so to go to another country and experience the same company, but with a different spin or a different culture has been quite interesting.
I can imagine, because then it would be more like Austrian culture in an US company. Because it's originally US, right?
Correct.
Yeah. That's interesting, because we tend to say sometimes like these multinationals, they have like one corporate culture, but that would not be exactly the case then. So the mixture, I hear.
It is. It's quite a bit of a mixture. It's when you're in the US, I think, when you're in the headquarters of any company, you kind of expect that things are the same all over the world. When you get the chance to see that in practice, it's really not the case.
Did you have that expectation to come into a sort of like same thing?
I wouldn't have said it in the time, but looking back, it just was an assumption I had.
Assumption, yeah.
Because like I said, you think that the company dictates the culture for the most part.
Yeah.
When in reality, I think it's comes from the other direction. The culture dictates the kind of national culture dictates the culture in each individual company. And then sometimes that's a clash, quite frankly, with the corporate structure.
With the corporate structure, yeah. And you have some experience there because you have now 3 other countries than your home country, and where you were very used to the whole culture. Very nice. Now talking about the Netherlands, since when are you here?
So we moved to the Netherlands. Actually, I started working in August.
Last year.
Actually, 2 years ago. So this will be our 3rd summer. So I had about 4 months where I commuted back and forth between the Netherlands and Switzerland.
Okay.
Family was still in Switzerland. And then we moved in November after that. So it was, again, kind of an interesting bridge period from a family perspective to be here by myself for a while, going back and forth, and then moving with the family after.
Yeah. So another move for them.
Yes.
Yeah. And your wife, does she still work for the company?
She does. She does. So her team is primarily based in the U.S. So she works a little bit of U.S. hours, and then works from home most of the time because it's, mostly remote calls and things like that.
Yeah. So your children are more like we say third culture kids, right? That's what we call them. Did you put any attention to that, like what they would go through?
We did. Again, I think that's an area where my best advice to someone is not to put too much pressure on them, because I think, as a couple, my wife, I had not moved as much. She had moved a little bit as a child. But that gave us both our own perspective on what we thought they would think, what we thought they would feel. And sometimes you project that on them more than they even feel it. So when we had the move to Austria, we knew that would be short term. We knew we would move again after that. And so there was just this kind of exciting feel that we'll be here for a while and then we'll move again. In Switzerland, we thought we would be there a bit longer. And so when we meant to do the move from Switzerland, we really were worried that they would be upset. We really were worried that it was going to be a shock. They were a little bit older. And so we, I think, put a little bit of that pressure on them because we just kept trying to make it okay for them. And in the end, we told them and they were like, yeah, great. A new place. Let's do it.
And so isn't that nice?
It was amazing. It was
it's so
an amazing realization. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing how they adjust, right? Yeah.
It is. It's amazing how they adjust. It's also amazing how you think that they're, we kind of decided as a couple that we didn't want to tell them everything until we knew where we were going and give them some certainty, because that felt like the right thing to do. It's hard to say whether or not, making them part of the process or, making them waiting until it's certain. In the end, when we told them Amsterdam, in this case, I should take a step back. So we said, okay, we're going to move again. And my youngest daughter, who was only, 10 at the time, said, is it Amsterdam? And we said, yes. How did you know?
Oh, she figured really.
She said, well, every travel show we watched in the last few weeks has been in the Netherlands or in Amsterdam. So you don't realize that you're doing these things.
They're good at guessing.
Exactly.
They can read their parents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So if I hear so far, it's not a regret that you have as a family.
Absolutely not.
During this move.
No, absolutely not.
In what sense has it changed you as a family? Would you be able to say that?
I think positively, it's brought us closer together as a family, for sure. I mean, there's periods, especially in the beginning of each move, where you are your own best friends because you don't know anyone else.
Yeah, especially in COVID times. Yeah.
I think so from that perspective, we're very close. The girls, they're close in age together, well, being only 2 years apart, and they are extremely close-knit group, as a couple, because it's the same thing. When they first move, they have each other almost exclusively.
Yeah.
So that's been really super positive. Obviously, two teenage girls, sometimes things go the other direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's been a real positive. I'd say in terms of the things that they're open to, we like to travel, we like to try new things. That's been probably even more possible because we've moved around a little bit. So that's been a real positive.
Yeah. It's quite an upbringing, quite an experience as a youngster.
It is. It really, I would say, to be fair, to be balanced, they've grown up in international schools, which has been a huge benefit. It's really, I had no exposure to international school before I left the US. It's really quite amazing the way that the curriculum carries through from one country to the next. And that's really the point.
It makes you really...
It really is.
It makes it convenient.
So we left... you typically try and move in the summer so that you catch the beginning of a school year. We didn't have that chance when we moved to the Netherlands.
November, you said, yeah.
Yeah. And it was seamless. They left the school in Switzerland. They started the school in the Netherlands, and they were doing the same maths. They were reading the same books. It just felt like a continuous...
That's a fantastic system.
Yeah. So that was really amazing. On the flip side, every year one of their friends leaves. Either we move or one of their friends moves. And the school does an amazing job of helping them adapt and cope. But it's just a reality. International schools are fluid in terms of who comes in and out.
Change is a stable factor.
Yes.
It's amazing, 100%. Huh? Maybe talk a bit about your role, because you've got a leadership role. Have you been like a leader as well in Austria and in Switzerland?
So, yes and no. When I took the role in Austria, I was not in a management position. So that was actually a different way to learn, because you're learning your boss, you're learning your stakeholders, but not having to worry about learning a team or leading a team. In the role that I had in Switzerland, I had what I call a regional role. So I was actually responsible for 30 different countries. So a lot of cross-functional leadership there. I had a small team that I actually led, that were actually based in different places, but really then getting to know the culture in Finland, and then the next week in Sweden, and the next week in the Netherlands. Actually, was one of my countries that I would come to a lot.
Okay.
So it wasn't really here until moving into the Netherlands, taking on a much larger team, having a mixed team, some sales, some marketing, different functions that all reported into me.
Right. And so here it's mainly Dutch then?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say my team, 95, 97% Dutch.
So now we're curious what your experiences are as a American national, having lived in Austria and Switzerland and now in the Netherlands, leading a team of mainly Dutch people. Can you tell us about that experience?
Sure. I would say it's similar to my entire Dutch experience, if I'm being honest. It's and I say that because the culture at work is very similar to the culture that we see at home, in our neighborhood, which is nice from an integration perspective. When I come to work, it doesn't feel drastically different than the way that we interact with our neighbors, for example. I would say that the culture between the Dutch and the Americans, from the way that we do things perspective, is very similar, which can be very good and then very tricky at the same time, because I found that frequently it's in the nuance between the two that there's challenges. So, for example, if you go to Asia, you're going to see a different style of management. You feel it right away. Even in Austria, it was a very different system. It was more hierarchical, and it was more just different decisions made in a different way. You come here to the Netherlands, and it actually feels a lot like it did in the US. So that feels, you feel at home at first. But I think at the same time, it's a little bit easy to feel too at home because you don't notice that it is fundamentally a different
Can you give an example of that? Because it sounds like the devil is in the detail.
Yeah.
So it's the nuance, you say, in culture. Can you give an example maybe about how that works out?
Yeah, so absolutely. So I think that the thing that you always hear before you come here is that the Dutch are very direct.
Yeah.
You'll hear it from the Dutch. You'll hear it from anyone that's ever heard of the Dutch. The Dutch are very direct. Which I think is coming from cultures, other cultures where it's not that way. It's actually very refreshing to just have a good conversation and say what you feel. When you have that expectation, though, it makes you think that you're always going to hear what someone thinks. I found that not always to actually be the case, and that comes out, like you said, the devil's in the details. In most cases, people really want to understand why they're doing something. They just really, once they understand why, then they say, okay, I'm in, let's do it. Mm-hmm. Until that, if they don't feel like they've had a chance, and this is part of the directness, is if they haven't had a chance to tell me, I don't agree with this, that actually gives me the chance to say, this is why I think we should do this. This is why we're going to do this. And at that point, then it's, okay, let's do it. If you don't give that chance, then you would expect, if you keep hearing that it's really direct, you would expect someone to say, no, I don't agree. Let's keep moving on with this. Sometimes it just doesn't come out that way. Sometimes it's just kind of saying, okay. And then you can see, a little bit later on that you haven't done enough work to really say, this is why we're doing this.
Yeah. We call this inspraak in the Netherlands. Do you know that word?
No.
Have you come across that? We want to be heard.
Yeah.
As Dutch people.
Exactly.
That's a common thing as well that not many people know about, but we want to have a say. At least we want to be heard.
Yeah.
It's not that we want our own way always, but we want to have the feeling that especially the management listens. Not always agrees, but listens.
I totally agree.
And hears us out.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I agree.
That's a nice example. Very.
It is, and I think
terrifying.
it's an interesting learning as a leader, specifically in the Netherlands, because if you don't give the chance to be heard, then it's really hard to be followed at that point, right? Because it's just really not bought in.
Is that the silent resistance then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think silent resistance is a good way. It's just a general feeling that I haven't had my say. On the contrary, if you do give the opportunity to have everyone be heard at the table, you can create an expectation in yourself that you need to get everyone in agreement. Mm-hmm. And in the end, that's really not always the case. It's just that I want to put my perspective out there, and then I want someone to make a decision. And actually, that was a bit of a trap I fell into myself early in the role. Was I did realize that everyone wanted to be heard. And if there was conflicting opinions at the table, I would take a step back and say, okay, what do I need to do? How do I convince everyone? And that's actually where my team was super helpful with feedback to say, we want you to hear us, and then you make the decision, and then we go with it.
That's very, very helpful that they actually gave you sort of manual there.
Yes.
Yeah.
It took a while.
I know
a
lot of management struggle with that. A lot of managers struggle with that.
Yeah.
Exactly that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really
wonderful that they gave it to you as feedback. That means that you have built trust. Otherwise, they would not have said that.
Yeah. And it does take time.
They let you sort of struggle there.
Of course. For a little while.
Yeah.
For a little while. Yeah. I think that's really been the most common theme, like I said, that where work pulls through with everyday life is the culture is very open. The culture is very welcoming. But it takes time to build that trust. It takes time to break through that initial layer. And I think that's been it feels really good. Like I have to say, as an expat, you move, and to have people welcome you on the street and be friendly is really, it's amazing, if I'm being honest, because we've had, Vienna's lovely and the Austrians are lovely, but culturally it's very different. They keep to themselves. It's a very closed culture, like it's just close knit. And so even, I always give the example, we have 2 dogs. And so walking a dog is a litmus test. If people in Austria, even when you meet another dog, is just kind of heads down and a little bit of a nod and then moving on. Here in the Netherlands, it's like, wow, where did you come from? And like just a really open conversation, just very different. But that also creates an expectation like, wow, we're being accepted. Wow, we're being invited. But that takes time. That really, you stay at that same level of greeting for a long time before you get past it.
Right. Is there anything that you have learned what you can do yourself to be more, let's say, becoming part of the inner circle of people?
I think 2 things. One, consciously trying and asking. I think, it depends on, it's hard to say as an American because the American is a collection of a lot of cultures and norms. But one of the things is you, in some cases, don't ask a lot of questions. So you meet your neighbor and you say, how are you? And it's great to see you. Like I said before, you can stay at that level of conversation for years. Unless you start to ask, unless you start to say, well, what do you do? And what is your life like? And I think that's where culturally, the more questions you ask, it depends on the person, but in the end, that's how you start to actually get to know somebody. You start to break through a little bit, and then you actually start to exchange a little bit as humans. And I think even saying, I don't like this, I don't like that, you get a little bit deeper than just saying, yeah, this is so great, it's so nice here, and it's so great, this and that. That's really been a big part of it, is just forcing yourself to be a little bit more forward from that perspective.
Yeah.
The other thing is language, for sure, because I think that the language here has been the trickiest of anywhere I've been. It's a difficult language. Everybody says that. With the balance that nearly everyone will switch to English almost immediately. It's just a really culture that understands English very well, that speaks English very well. And so those 2 things work kind of in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Because it's difficult to learn Dutch, just like any language really. But it's difficult to stay in Dutch then because everyone will quickly speak to English. Not only will they switch to English, but they'll do it as a positive. Like they really are accommodating you. They want you to feel comfortable.
And wouldn't you just say like, oh, that's convenient for me. So what would be the reason why still you'd like to learn Dutch?
Yeah, I think 2 things. One, I think it does feel that way, quite frankly. It really does. It's just easy. I mean, I think you could live here probably 30 years and just be comfortable in English. I think in that time, you'll have missed a few things. One is just anytime you're speaking a second language, you're doing more work, right? So if you're always the one in your native language and always putting that on the other person, it just says something about what you think of that interaction. And so it doesn't mean that you need to get fluent to the point where you're going to have an in-depth political conversation with a neighbor, for example. But at least saying good morning to them. And
then I wonder, it's nice that you say that, but I wonder, is it in you or is it something that you get reflected from people in the Netherlands that they actually expect you to learn their language?
If I was not working in the Netherlands, I probably would never have fully felt that I should learn the language. That came a little bit more from a work perspective. That was for 2 reasons. One, like I said, my team is primarily Dutch. So when they meet, they're speaking in Dutch. When I come into the room, then they'll switch to English. The more and more comfortable they get with me, like you said, the more and more they trust me, the more and more I just become part of the norm, the less and less that they switch.
They keep speaking Dutch.
They keep speaking Dutch. If they're speaking to me, then they'll switch because they want me to understand.
Right.
But, work, you spend a lot of time of your life at work. Mm-hmm. And so the conversations that you have before the meeting and after the meeting about what did you do this weekend and what did your kids do, and like getting to know people.
The small talk.
Exactly. The small talk. If that's all in a language you don't understand, you go home at the end of the day saying, wow, I've talked about a lot of work things, but I had no.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
You miss it out. And so I think that's really, so that's one element. That's where, taking the time, I'm at a point now where, I've really focused on understanding the language as much as possible.
Okay.
Really just being able to sit. And that's, like I said, is for that small talk piece so that I can hear it. Even if I end up responding in English, that at least I can say, oh, wow, your kid's at a football tournament or you're playing.
Yeah, you feel more part of it. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's more, you feel part of it and it's just more, it adds color to the day, right? Yeah. It's not just straight to this target or this number or something like that. The other thing is then from a work perspective, specifically when we're in a customer conversation. And so in this role, I have teams of marketing and sales. And so part of what we do is we go out and make sales calls. And if I'm going to join a call, at first, it was kind of the same thing. Oh, we do it in English. It's totally fine. Nobody cares. That gets a little bit old after a while because now you're asking your own team member to do something that they normally do in Dutch all the time. They're trying to do it in English. You're asking then your customer who you were already asking for time and asking for attention. And then you're saying, can you switch?
Yeah. I see. I see what you mean. I see what you mean. You feel this motivation.
It does. Yeah.
I'm curious, what are the most surprising things when you came to the Netherlands?
The most surprising things. It's interesting. I had been to the Netherlands only once before I moved to the Netherlands. So most of my expectations were based on other, either reading about it or people telling me things about it. I had come from Switzerland, so I had heard that it was flat. I had heard that there were bikes everywhere. What I hadn't heard, though, is how colorful of a place it is. What I mean by that is, for one, it's a beautiful country. It's just an absolutely beautiful place to live. I had heard that the weather that it rained all the time. I learned that was true for a few months, and then it became one of the best climates I'd ever been in. So quite frankly, that was a little bit surprising. I mean, we moved in November. Like I said, it was gray for 3 months, and it just felt like that was never going to end.
It's a bad period to arrive.
But then on the contrary, spring started, and it was the most lovely place that we'd ever lived. It was really unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think that it's a good kind of metaphor for the culture in itself, is if you just look at it, if you take a quick look, without digging any deeper, you miss a lot of the detail of it. And so I think the Netherlands, one of the things that really surprised me is the difference in my mind, in a relatively small country, how much variation there is in the north and the south. For example, when you go to cities, and when you go to Amsterdam, for example, and then you go to Rotterdam, or then you go much further down into the south, you get a very different feel. It can almost feel like a different country sometimes.
Yeah. Have you been done a bit of exploring in the country?
Yes. Yeah, quite a bit. I think, especially, when you move the first time, you start every weekend, you're going to a new city.
Nice.
To look at different things.
Discover it.
Yeah, exactly. That's been really nice. And then also, like I said, from a work perspective, I get to go to hospitals all over the country. So, we'll have customers in Maastricht, and then the next day is in Groningen, and, so all over the place. So I would say, just to answer your question, the variety in culture.
Yeah. And the color, as you say, that's a colorful country.
Yeah. It really is.
In all ways.
In all ways. I think really, the tulips obviously are the most.
This is the season.
Yes, absolutely. They're the most vivid example. But I think if you think about the Netherlands as kind of a historic global trading hub, all of the culture that's been traded all over the world has come back here. And I think that's really been a nice surprise. I mean, the food here is fantastic. You can get almost anything you want from any different culture, which is really nice. So you spend, majority of the time eating Dutch food, but then when you want anything else, it's right at your fingertips. It's really
What
nice.
would you say is Dutch food?
Well, bitterbal for sure.
Right.
Everywhere you go.
Okay.
But I mean, I think croqueta anywhere that you go as well. But I think it's what I mean by that is I think one of my favorite things about Dutch culture is, like, in the US, I come from a sandwich culture. It's like you have lunch, you have a sandwich. Here, it's like you have broach of this or you have a broach of that. Like, it's really similar from that perspective in, you kind of eat a lighter lunch and then dinner is a different thing. I actually really appreciate that. It just feels like home to me.
It's nice. Because where are you from in the US? Which area?
So outside of Philadelphia, so in the Northeast.
Okay.
So similar, actually, quite similar climate-wise to the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Temperatures are very similar. We have similar seasons. So from that perspective, feels a lot like home.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. It sounds very positive.
Yeah.
The whole experience so far, very positive. How long do you intend to stay? Is this something you'd like to stay for a long time?
So it's a good question. Part of it will be determined by my career.
Is it your employer who defines?
Yeah. So it's basically the, where's the next opportunity? And
Really?
So if there's another opportunity in the Netherlands, I think from a, family perspective, we're super happy here.
Yeah.
So we would stay as long as we can. Part of the, kind of path we've taken as a family is to take other countries on and do different things. So, we'll determine that in the next few months or years. So where we go next. But with that said, like you said, it's been extremely positive here. We found a home here. Austria was a little bit changed by COVID. We liked it, but it just didn't have, you never had that feeling of like, wow, this is really home. Switzerland, is like being on holiday no matter when, no matter how long you're there. It just always has this feel of being incredibly beautiful and incredibly expensive, like a holiday. And then here in the Netherlands, it's been kind of the best of everything that we found. It's, it's friendly, it's warm, and we're happy here.
It's really good to hear. It's really good to hear. So you would recommend people coming here?
100%.
Yeah,
absolutely. And that really, I joke a lot. I think if the weather was better full year, then this would be overpopulated place, because it's really, I think, from a tourist perspective, people hear, it rains there all the time, and that keeps a certain amount of people away. But really, it's a beautiful place.
And it's not true.
It's really not. It's really not. I mean, there's periods where it does. But I mean, there's periods everywhere where the weather's not good.
Very nice. Thank you for your story. Just to round up, one single last piece of advice that you could give people that are planning to come to the Netherlands, what would you say?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say that the key piece is that integration will seem very quick, especially coming from, other Western European countries or even the US. But it does take work to go deeper. I think that's really the key for me, is you can stay at a top level for a long time very comfortably. And I think that comfort feels like integration. But you have to kind of earn it yourself to go deeper than that. You have to ask questions. The language really helps from that perspective. And if you do, you start to see more of those colors. It really is, I think that Amsterdam is a good example. There's a ton of tourists, and everybody knows how to handle the tourists, right? If you're from Amsterdam, you kind of know when to go, how to handle them. And if you're not careful, you can spend years in that same setting of people looking at you like a tourist, which is fine because they're very friendly to tourists. But if you really want to live and feel like you're a part of the society here, you have to go deeper. And then once you do, like I said, it's a colorful place. It's really beautiful.
So do the work is what you say.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, in that line, dankjewel.
Alsjeblieft.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Expat Podcast the Netherlands. If you're new here, I want to let you know that at Your Move to the Netherlands, we support expats in building a happier, more effective, and more confident life in the Netherlands. Whether you're preparing to move, already settling in, or trying to find your way in Dutch work culture, we offer a range of courses, coaching, and practical support. We help you navigate daily life, understand the Dutch way of working, find a job, develop your career, and integrate in a way that feels natural and empowering.